And hello once more, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to episode 72 of A Druids Dozen. Yeah, my name's John. I'm a radio DJ. I present a couple of radio shows. There's the Sunday Rock Show on BCFM radio, 93.2 FM in Bristol in the UK, syndicated worldwide via the Rock Radio Network. And then there's the Rock Druid Show on Astro Radio, which is a international music and science-based station. Links for both shows are going to be down there on YouTube. On YouTube, over there on Facebook, Finger Dance. And yeah, basically this is me raiding my record collection, waving a few items around in front of you, well, a dozen to be precise, and just chatting a little bit about them. So without further ado, shall we start? I shall put the bins on. Bins on. And we will start this week with a bit of Swiss hard rock. Yeah, Metal Rendezvous by Krokus from 1980. There is the front. There is the back. Whip this out. No, there's no with a sleeve or anything on here. Pull this out. There is a disc. Areola Records and no, just catalogue number on the run out groove. Right, now Krokus, Swiss metal hard rock band, very much in the AC/DC mode. In fact, when Bon Scott from AC/DC died, a lot of people reckon that Mark Storace would make a great replacement for Bon Scott. Don't think he would have done, for reasons that we'll talk about a bit later in this performance, or at the end of this show, end of this week's episode. But yeah, he didn't. Krokus carried on. Krokus have been going since about 1973, I think their first album was. I'm not aware of their very early stuff, although, you know, from about 78 onwards, I've got most of their releases. This one came out in 1980 and is probably the album that began to break them outside Switzerland. A couple of the earlier ones did get some notoriety out in the UK and the US, but this was the one that kind of brought them to notice. A corking album, produced by a guy called Martin Pearson, recorded in Sweden at the where was it, Platinum One Studios in Zurich. And yeah, a really strong record. It's this contains a couple of their kind of great tracks. It covers a load of great tracks, but two of their better known songs. Bedside Radio, which was a bit of a hit in their home country and in Germany. And then there's Backseat Rock and Roll, another cracking little sort of like head banging number, along with stuff like other tracks in there that were worth listening to: Tokyo Nights, Sky Dealer, no sorry, Shy Kids, sorry, not about Sky Dealer, Lady Double Dealer, Heat Stroke. It's all pretty damn good. Like I said, the AC/DC vibe is strong in this one, Young Skywalker Walker, but not to the extent where it's coming cloney. They're just a great band, from a great album from a great rock and roll band. Not my favourite Krokus album. You know, some of their later stuff like Headhunter, One Vice at a Time, on the overall scheme of things, knocks this into a cocked hat. But you know, it's pretty good anyway. And one that I would recommend to anyone that's kind of crocus curious. It's as good a place to start as any. Yeah, 1980 crocus, one bias at a time. No, Metal Rendezvous. Can't even read look at what bloody cover I'm holding up. Oh well, gonna be one of them days, I think. Anyway, next up we have a brand new release. Well, say brand new, it came out a couple of months ago, and I picked up a copy. Yeah, Thursday, a couple of days ago, when I was out spending some birthday money that I had, and it's this. Sisters of Mercy, the BBC Sessions, 1982 to 1984. There is the front. There is the back. It's just the basic information on the gatefold. And in case you're interested, there's the disc. Like I said, this was only reissued a month or two back. Part of the BBC reissuing some of their classic Radio 1 sessions. And being a bit of a kind of, I don't know, I was in a gothic mood. I was looking for something a bit gothic, so I saw this. It was only about £5, so I grabbed it. And yeah, glad I did. This is cracking. It's made up of 3 sessions that the Sisters of Mercy did for Radio 1. There's 2 they did for the John Peel show, one in 1982, one in 1984, and then there's the one they did for the Davy Kid Jensen show. Remember him? Back in 1983. And it's just great. It's if you don't know, the BBC sessions, they're normally recorded in one day at the Maid of Our Studios, the BBC studio complex in North London. And basically you'll show up and you'll have about 8 hours to record and mix. Normally 4 tracks that will be then broadcast on a later edition of the whatever show you're recording it for. A lot of radio, the more serious Radio 1 shows did at the time. You know, Tommy Vance's Friday Rock Show did some classic sessions. John Peel's sessions are famous. Even people like David Lee Travis organised sessions, as did Kid Jensen, Whispering Bob Harris, etc. Anyway, I can vaguely remember listening to some of the John Peel session stuff, you know, growing up. And although the kind of Sisters of Mercy was a band I've only really got into retrospectively, ex-girlfriend of mine many years ago was a bit of a goth, and she actually made me sit down and listen to some. Made me think, oh yeah, there's mileage in this. But anyway, so I saw this. It was fairly reasonably priced, so I grabbed it. So really glad that I did. There's it's the first 2 sessions are the classic. Well, actually, all the classic early what do you call it, Sisters lineup. The first 2 sessions are Michael Eldrick on vocals, Gary Marks on guitar, Craig Adams on bass, Ben Gunn on guitar, Dr. Avalanche on drums. And then the final session, the 84 John Peel session, Ben Gunn's out, Wayne Hussey, late went on for the Mission, is in. Corking stuff. Interestingly, there's a couple of cuts on here, covers. There's an interesting rendition of the Iggy and the Stooges 1969, which kind of, given a kind of slowed down, dark Michael Eldridge approach, really kind of gives it new guts, as does Dolly Parton's Jolene, which is from the 1983 Kid Jensen session. Again, I've always loved Michael Eldridge's voice, but you know, dark, doomy, kind of quite sinister in approach. Yeah, it just makes it sound damn fine. Yeah, hard to pick a highlight. I've only really listened to it a couple of times so far, so but you know, their rendition of Floor Show from the '82 Peel session is, in my opinion, classic, just as good as the original album version. Then on the the later John Peel session, Poison Door, sent me shivers up your spine when I first heard it. It still does. So yeah, pretty damn good. So recommend this for goths everywhere. Sisters of Mercy fans, this needs to be in your collection. And anyone that's Sisters of Mercy curious, go get. Yeah, Sisters of Mercy, the BBC sessions 82 to 84. Good stuff. Okay, jump back in time now. And we'll have this. This is Red Sea by Warhorse. Originally came out in... trying to think when it was originally released. I think it was 1971, I think. I'll check on the inner sleeve. This one. There's the front. There's the back. Now this is a 1984 reissue from Thunderbolt Records. And it doesn't say when the original one was. I think when the original recording was. I think it was 71. I may be wrong. But there's the disc. And again, just a catalogue number on the Run Out Grooves. Now, Thunderbolt, Warhorse were the band that was put together by original Deep Purple bass player Nick Simpler. When he was the guy that played on Shades of Deep Purple, Book of Taliesin, and their eponymous album. When they had the band Shake Up and Ian Gillan came in, not Ian Gillan, yeah, Ian Gillan did come in, but Roger Glover came in at the same time. Nick Simpler left, and basically formed Warhorse. Did a couple of albums, their eponymous debut and this one. So this is a reissue, and this has a different cover from the original. The original's got some kind of sailing ship design with the band as figureheads over here, whereas this has got what looks like they paid some 16-year-old O-level art student to break out the felt tip pens and draw a knight in armour. Yeah, bursting out of a Red Sea. I don't know why there's a change of cover. This is the only issue that has this cover on it. This and a Dutch reissue that came out at the same time. All the others, it's been reissued several times. All the earlier editions and the later CD reissues have got the original artwork. So what this is doing with this travesty on the front, I don't know. But on the other hand, yeah, it's still the same recordings, it's the same mix as the original, and it's not bad. It's not a brilliant album. I have got the other Warhorse out, their debut, and this isn't quite as good as that. Yeah, the opening cut, Red Sea's all right. It has a cover of I Who Have Nothing, which is a sort of like Motown classic that's been reworked by everyone from like Shirley Bassey, Tom Jones, even Status Quo have done a version of that. Yeah, there's the bit of an epic cut called Mouthpiece on the second side, which is worth a listen, but it's nothing substantial. It's a bit of a forgettable record overall. Not one that I really play a great deal. If I am going to go for Warhorse, I do tend to go for the debut album and not this. But having said that, you know, there are a lot of worse records out there. Yeah, Ashley Holt, the vocalist, he's got one of those voices. Now I don't mind him, but he's quite high pitched. He's kind of like sort of is in the Rob Halford, John Anderson kind of range, and some people do find his voice annoying. I can tolerate it just, but you know, Yeah, there's some Peter Parks, the guitarist, does some pretty good guitar work, and there's some quite impressive keyboards from Frank Wilson as well. Yeah, but overall, it's not bad. I'll definitely try before you buy. Yeah, Warhorse, Red Sea, approximately 1971, 1972. Yeah, worth checking out. Okay, now for a complete change of gear. This is another one that I picked up in the Bristol Central Library. As I mentioned a couple of episodes ago, Bristol Central Library were getting rid of some of their CD catalogue. They replace them every couple. They do this every year or so. And basically, rather than sell them off this year, they had a big rack saying help yourself. So I've got a couple this week from that section that I grabbed over the last few times I visited the library, and it's this one. This is 20th Century Blues by Marianne Faithfull. There is the front. There is the back, complete with the Bristol City Council Library logo. Crack this open. There is the disc with the library catalogue number attached. And here's the booklet. It's credits. It's some rather substantial sleeve notes as well. And there's my artwork. There's the track listing. Now, this is a live album recorded in a small theatre in Paris. Where it's just Marianne Faithfull, a pianist whose name escapes me. I should have made notes, but I didn't. A piano player and an upright bass player. And the songs on here are basically, with one or two exceptions, there are a couple of kind of her own material on here, but a lot of it is stuff from people like Bertolt Brecht and songs from the 1920s, 1930s Berlin cabaret scene. You ever seen the film Cabaret with Liza Minnelli? Then it's that kind of music, you know. But this works really, really well. Now, I've always admired Marianne Faithfull as a vocalist, especially since I first, many years ago, first heard the Modern English album. Was it Broken English? One of the two. The one with Ballad of Lucy Jordan on it. But anyway, I've always liked her, and she's one of these people, as she's got older, her voice has matured like a fine whiskey. You know, her voice is as rough as a rough thing can be. But, you know, when she's kind of singing things like the Alabama song, you know, the Ballad of the Soldier's Wife on here, yeah, even Mac the Knife, the old sort of like jazz standard, she really brings them to life and gives these songs a kind of, like, she speaks them, she feels them, she makes them ring true. Overall, just absolutely brilliant. You know, not the sort of stuff I normally listen to, but, you know, I've always liked a bit of jazz occasionally, and I've also loved Marianne Faithfull doing kind of cabaret jazz standards. It's just great. If you're a rock and roller, try before you buy, but if you like a bit of good music and like an experimentation, well worth checking out. Yeah, 20th Century Blues, Marianne Faithfull from 1998. Cracking album. Okay, change your gear again. Here we go. B.A.Robertson, Initial Success, 1980. There's the front. There's the back. Whip this out. No in the sleeve or anything. There we go. Asylum Records there. There's the disc. Whoops. No, nothing of note on the run out grooves. Now, B.A.Robertson is one of these guys in the British music scene that's been around since the early 70s, still active today, although, you know, most people have never heard of him. These days, he's primarily a songwriter and producer. Worked with people like Mike and the Mechanics, and still kind of, sort of various other people, still as a producer and their assistant songwriter. Although he did have his moment in the sun. This is his third album, came out in 1980, and the only one that really saw him any real success. Primarily on the back of a couple of hit singles he had, which was Bang Bang and To Be or Not to Be. There's a couple of others on here, something like Looks Cool in a Caftan, which was minor hit singles, but Bang Bang, To Be or Not to Be were his two big ones. And yeah, like I said, he's a sort of singer-songwriter, and now whether he was kind of adapting to fit in with the musical style of the time, or whether that was just he just happened to be in the right place at the right time with the right sound of music, I don't know. But it's a little, his stuff on this album, which I can only talk about this album, so I haven't really heard his other solo stuff, is a bit kind of new wavy. It's got that kind of slightly post-punk vibe to it. And, you know, 1980, it's the kind of end of the punk scene. You know, it's kind of the new wave was around. Bands like Blondie and that were big. So he kind of fitted in, and he had a couple of hits. It's not bad. It's, yeah, he's got, he does an interesting line in quirky lyrics. He's got not an unappealing voice, and he can write an half decent tune. You know, after this, he went on to do a bit of TV presenting. Famously had a big bust up with the girl from Wow Wow Wow, and you know, she called him a bloody old hippie and stormed off his show live on air. But you know, tried to present youth television. But you know, I don't dislike this album. I dragged this one out originally as something, yeah, let's have a laugh at this one. But gave it a listen and thinking, yeah, no, this is not without merit. Yeah, definitely a try before you buy. But if you like this kind of quirky, kind of poppy new wave from the early 1980s, late 1970s, it's an interesting one to try out. So yeah, B.A.Robertson, bang, Initial Success, 1980. Okay, next up we'll have a bit of punk. There's the front. There's the back. This is Bobby's Way by the Setbacks, 2008 and 15. There we are. Hang on. Whip this out. There's the disc. Yes, it's a local punk band to Bristol, low budget production, but ain't that what punk's about, ladies and gentlemen? Yeah, it's the Setbacks. They're kind of popular draws in our local punk circuit. Band that I've seen live a few times, have gigged with both my bands, Alien Stashed In and Zob, have shared bills with the Setbacks. Lovely bunch of blokes, always entertaining, and they've done a couple of EPs, of which this is one. Only a 4-tracker. Yeah, 4 tracks in here. The title track, Bobby's Wailing, There's No Control, which is probably my favourite track on the EP. But Friend and Vacant Stare finish it off. Like I said, No Control is probably my favourite, but they're all pretty damn good. It's fun, it's punk. It's punk of the old school. You know, if you're into kind of stuff like The Clash, Stiff Little Fingers, Early Damned, you know, maybe hints of bands like the Subhumans as well, then the Setbacks are going to be right up your street if you've not come across them. Still, they've been going for, well, at least since the mid-2000s, if not earlier. Still going strong to this day. And, yeah, there's nothing more to say about it. Just that the Setbacks are a great punk band that, you know, might need to find a bit of tracking down to get hold of their stuff, because their EPs tend to come out in small runs of limited edition batches. But, you know, I've no doubt if you contact the band via social media, they'll tell you where you can get your hands on one. And this is available to download on places like Bandcamp, and it's on Spotify, etc. So, yeah, nothing more to say really. Bristol punk legends, the Setbacks, Bobby's Way 2015. If you like a bit of punk, go get. And another drastic change of gear, as we're going to go Irish folk. There's the front. Or as a friend of mine that's went to Irish folk said, no, that's not Irish folk, that's Irish balladeering. Apparently, according to the hardcore Irish folk people, Irish folk is normally instrumental, played on traditional instruments, which is does not include guitars. It just includes things like bagpipes and borons and whistles, etc., and harps. Whereas this is Christy Moore and his Ride On album from 1982. I'll check on the inside in a second. I think it's 82. And here's a singer-songwriter with a guitar. But I turn around and say that's splitting hairs. It's very folky. And Christy Moore used to be in a band called Planksty, who are a kind of folk rock band that did employ bagpipes and borons and that kind of thing. So, yeah, bite me. 1984, sorry. There's the disc. Nothing behind the disc, just a nice shiny silver disc. I'll whip this out. Need a magnifying glass to read them, but there are lyrics and credits. And even with my specs, I can't read them. Basically, they've just taken the inner sleeve from the vinyl album and just made it very small. And I haven't got a magnifying glass on me. But anyway, Christy Moore, so former member of the Irish folk band Planksty, went solo when Planksty broke up in the, it must have been mid-1980s, mid-1970s, sorry. And bit of a legend in Ireland, massive name on Ireland, bit of a cult following over in the UK. And I've been wanting a copy of this album for years. My Irish folky friend, it was one of his favourite albums. It was one of the albums that, you know, we could. I've got to admit, I do find a lot of the traditional Irish folk stuff can be a bit dull when you hear the 13th reel. You've heard 13 reels too many, in my opinion. But you know, this was one album we could put on that was folk enough to satisfy him and sort of singer-songwriter enough to satisfy me. And Christy Moore is a hell of a talent, both a songwriter and a performer. On this album, it's probably his best known work, but like I said, I wanted to get this album because I used to really enjoy listening to it, and I haven't heard this album for years. And again, I actually bought this one brand new with some birthday money. So thanks Mum and Kid Sis for the birthday money. And yeah, brought this home and I played it about 3 or 4 times like the last couple of days, and it is beautiful. There is only one way of describing this record: it's beautiful. It kind of runs the full gamut of emotions. You got things like the title track, which is a standout cut on the album, written by a guy called Jim McCafferty, and it's a story. It works on several levels. Yes, it's a bit of a love song about, you know, someone that's not, he's go horse riding, but if you read the story behind the song, it's about a you know, this is Ireland in the 1970s. It's about a father talking to his son, and his son saying, well, look, I want to go and join the IRA, and his father saying, well, I can't stop you, but I'd rather you didn't, kind of thing. The whole, you know, set against the background of the troubles in Northern Ireland, follows this through. You've got what's that? I've got Back Home in Derry, which was written by Bobby Sands, who before he became an IRA terrorist and martyr to the Irish cause by starving himself to death in the H blocks, was a bit of a songwriter. He wrote this song called Back Home in Derry, which is on this album, which is a beautiful song about someone being transported for during the Irish potato famine, being transported for sort of stealing food, being transported to Australia. A song that kind of rings true against the Irish experience, full stop. You've got other things like Among the Wicklow Hills, which is a sort of the Irish folk ballad. But then on the other hand, you've got cuts like Liston Varna, which is a song about the Irish festival of the same name, and it is just quite humorously written about Shergar arriving. Shergar arrives ridden by Lord Luke and all that kind of thing. It's just a great album. My favourite cut on here is probably, beside the title track, is probably Viva la Quinta Brigada, which is a song about the Irish volunteers from both North and South that go off to fight with the Spanish Civil War, and how, you know, on the other hand, you've got the kind of anti-British vibes that looked upon fascism as a way for Ireland. So you had Irishmen going off to fight for Franco's legions as well, and how the Irishmen end up fighting the Irish, sort of like in the Spanish Civil War. Beautiful album, immaculately played. Like I said, I can't read the credits to tell you who plays on it, but they deserve maximum salutations for producing one of the greatest folk rock albums of all time, in my opinion. Yeah, Christy Moore, Ride On, 1984. Absolutely brilliant, and I recommend this to anybody that likes good music. Okay, more vinyl next, and we'll go a bit metal. Here we are, Saints Will Conquer. It's only a mini album, but this is by Armoured Saint. It came out in 1988. There we go. There's the front. It's a live 5-track EP, effectively. There's the back. Whip this out. There's the obligatory Fontaine montage. There's the what do you call it? The lyrics to Can You Deliver? Yeah, so it's a live album, but there's only 4 live tracks of the 5 on here. The live track, oh sorry, 5 live tracks. Sorry, the 6th track is is a version of Can You Deliver, track from their first album, but on here's the kind of an early demo version that's been given a remix and just chucked on the album for the hell of it. Yeah, recorded on their Book of Blood tour. We looked at the Book of Blood album by Armoured Saint on a couple of episodes ago, or a good few episodes ago on this series. But this is just corking. I love Armoured Saint. They've always have been a favourite band of mine. In my opinion, one of the best metal bands, best American metal bands of the 80s. And on here, Rising Fear to kick off. My favourite Armoured Saint cut of all time, Nervous Man, the second cut up. Just a storming version. Book of Blood, probably the best track off the Rising Fear album. So the other version, Can You Deliver, and then Madhouse and No Reason to Live wind up the album. Just storming. Classic lineup of John Bush on vocals, David Pritchard and Joey Vera on, David Pritchard on guitar, John Vera on bass, Gonzo on drums. It just rocks. It's got that. It's not overly produced. It's got the kind of really good live raw vibe that a good live album should have, and you know, minimum studio overdubs if any, and just I've never seen Armoured Saint live because on the very few occasions they've ever come to Britain, I've never been able to catch them. But you know, I can shut my eyes, play this album, shut my eyes, and pretend I'm at an Armoured Saint gig. Armoured Saint have just reissued a new live album as well, which is worth checking out, which is basically a live rendition of their entire Symbols of Salvation album. But anyway, that's with the modern lineup. This is with the classic lineup, and it rocks. Great stuff. Yeah, Armoured Saint, Saints Will Conquer live from 1988. Corking. Okay, back to the UK. Went up to Bonnie, Scotland. This is Sky Won't Fall by Steve Nimmo. Steve Nimmo, yeah. There's the front. It opens up lustily. There's the disc. That's what's behind the disc and the fold out. And this album came out in not sure. I think it's something like 2004. Oh, sorry, 2016. Yes, there. Now, Steve Nimmo is a Scottish blues rock guitarist and a damn fine player. If you're into people like Snowy White, Cliff Moore, those kind of things, even maybe people like Kenny Wayne Shepherd, this guy's going to be right up your street. Is, you know, Joe Bonamassa's another name that kind of bears comparison. Good original blues played by a performer and a songwriter that kind of can deliver the goods and churn out some damn fine tracks. Tracks on here, things like Chain of Hope, Roll the Dice Again, Walk the Thin Line, Pray for You, Gambler's Roll, Loving Might Do Us Good. Yeah, hard to pick a favourite track because it's all pretty sweet. Yeah, I hadn't played this album for a couple of years until I dragged this out the other day. I found it. I was moving a box of CDs. This one kind of slipped out, and I thought, oh, maybe that's the gods of rock speaking to me to give it a listen. So I'm giving it a listen. Not only will I put it back on the playlist of my radio shows, but I'm waving it in front of the camera now. I don't know much else about Steve Nimmo, to be honest with you. I know he's done a couple of other albums, but what they're like, I couldn't tell you. But this one, if you like a bit of blues rock, like I said, your Snowy Whites, Joe Bonamassas, etc., this is worth a check. So, yeah, Steve Nimmo, the sky won't fall. Good stuff. Okay, next up we'll have a bit of this. This is Forever by Orleans, and this came out in 1979. There is the front. There is the back. in a sleeve with lyrics and credits. There's the disc. Infinity Records, this is on. And no run out groove messages on this one. There you go. Orleans, American band. Surprised to find out that they've actually were quite successful in the States. Hit singles and everything. Completely unknown on this side of the pond. This is the only album I've ever seen by them. The only ever album I've ever heard by them. And yeah, when I was doing a bit, I dragged this out, gave it a listen and started doing some research. Surprised to find out not only are these guys were really good, but one of them, I can't remember which one, but one of them was actually a US senator for a couple of years, running on a progressive democratic ticket, whatever that means. But anyway, New Orleans, apparently they formed in the early 1970s. Still an ongoing concern, on and off. They keep reforming, getting together, reunion gigs, etc. So we've got the hiccups here. Done sort of like various, still recording, etc. And like I said, the only album I've heard by them, and let's just say these guys are soft rock. These guys are play rock so soft, they make Toto seem like napalm death. These guys are very much in the Chicago kind of Hall and Oates vein. Not the stuff that I normally listen to, and yeah, because I tend to find that kind of music, unless the songwriting is brilliant, can be very forgettable. Sadly, I find this album a little bit forgettable. It's well played. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking the band. You know, they're quite good. Apparently, Love Takes Time was a minor US, one of their major US hits, and there was a couple of other hits off this in the US, but I've never heard of. But yeah, it's that kind of, you know, it's power balladism taken to the nth degree. There's, you know, they're one of these bands that you know that they can probably rock and roll should they want to, but they just never get out of that safe radio friendly gear. Which is, if that's that's what they want to do, then fair enough. You know, not everyone likes sort of like burning guitar solos and screaming away at 900 miles an hour. But I just trying to find it a little bit bland. Shame, because like I said, they're a great band. They can play well, and this is a good album. If bands like Chicago are your, you know, Hall and Oates, etc., Air Supply, are your bag, then if you haven't heard Orleans, check them out. But you know, everyone else, please beware. These guys are so soft, you can sink into them. And it's not, and if you're into heavy metal, it's not a pleasant experience. Yeah, Orleans Forever, 1979. Next up, we'll have something else I rescued from the library. Here we go. This is a double CD set. This is not double CD set. This is 2 albums on 1 CD. This is Gentle Giant, Freehand and Interview. Double album, 1 disc set there. There's the front, there's the back, there is a booklet there, which I'll show you in a second. There is a disc. And basically, the booklet is just a load of extensive sleeve notes written by a guy called Alan Kinsman in 1998 when this set was reissued. yeah, basically, let's say this is two Gentle Giant albums from the mid-70s, or mid-late 70s, yeah, mid-70s, sorry. The first one, Freehand 75, 76, Interview. Basically stuck together on one disc. It's happened a lot. I've got a couple of these kind of two albums, one disc kind of thing. And it's quite cool. Gentle Giant, if you don't know, British prog rock band, very much in the, well, if you think kind of like, yes, King Crimson, Genesis, Green Slade, that kind of vein, but with a slightly more toned down, maybe slightly more folky kind of vibe to them, then that's Gentle Giant. Got a few of their albums, and but these two, well, actually, I got this primarily because of Interview, which I've not got. Freehand, the 75 album, has not long been reissued, and apparently Interview's getting a reissue at some point pretty soon. Basically, Stephen Wilson, the old Porcupine Tree vocalist and guitarist, is with the surviving members of Gentle Giant, is going through and he's remixing and remastering a lot of the Gentle Giant albums, because apparently they found them a little bit not up to snuff, modern sounding, and they been remastered for digital formats and that. This hasn't been remastered for digital format as such. Maybe so, it does suffer from that analog source onto a digital format. It's a little bit echoey, a little bit spacey, but it's not the worst one I've come across, and you can live with it. So Freehand has just had a reissue with the Stephen Wilson remix. Interview is coming out with the next batch of them, or so I've been informed. So you may want to give it a listen, but give it a wait until the remasters come out. Or you can go and track down the original vinyls, I don't care. Highlights to look out for: on Freehand, his Last Voyage and Tally Bont are probably the two standout cuts. On Interview, Empty City, I would say, well worth a listen. But it's all quite listenable overall. So yeah, Gentle Giant, Freehand and Interview, from 75, 76 respectively, and this is the 1998 double album pack kind of thing. Yeah, pretty sweet if you like your prog rock. Now, I know what you're thinking. I managed to get through an entire episode of the Rock Druid without actually giving anything a slagging. Fret not, because it is with great sadness I bring you this. Ugh. Yeah, Jugulator by Judas Priest, 1987. There is the front. There is the back. Whip bleeds out. Inner sleeves. There's the guilty parties on a poster. On this one, you have the lyrics for the entire album. This one, you have some iffy artwork, band photos. And again, on both the discs are identical. There's the thing, there's nothing on the run out grooves. Now, I remember this one coming out. I remember running out to buy it. Oh, foolish me. Judas Priest's previous album was Painkiller. Then, for reasons, well, I say known unto himself, well described in his biography, Rob Alford stepped down from the band. this was the period he was coming out as gay. He had health issues as well, and family issues all came together. He needed time out, so he stood down from the band. There were 2 attempts at recording a new Priest album that were abandoned after Painkiller. Then they discovered Tim Ripper Owens in a Judas Priest tribute band. Thought, we'll replace... This is what I came back talking about with the Krokus album. Priest made the mistake of replacing Rob Halford with a bloke that sounded like Rob Halford, or almost like Rob Halford. And as a result, this came out. And this album, I'm sorry. I tried to get into this album. I tried to see good in it, but it's a travesty. Not only, yeah, we'll start with the artwork. Classic Priest logo ripped up and murdered and turned into something that different. The artwork is Mark Wilkinson, who's done some great album artwork for bands like Marianne and Iron Maiden, etc. That's appalling. Yeah, okay, the full version on the inner sleeve is a bit better, but you know, also Mark Wilkinson had done the previous album, Painkiller, and I think he did ram it down as well. But why, you know, what was he thinking when he did this? The music is Judas Priest trying to sound like Megadeth or Metallica. Judas Priest trying to go thrash metal. Yes, they did a kind of flirt on tracks like Painkiller on the previous album, with the kind of ultra fast thrashy stuff. But this album, but at least that kept some kind of melodic form to it and some kind of, you know, Priest kind of stamp. Because Priest, despite all their fact they could be one of the heaviest bands on earth when they wanted to, always kept it sweet and melodic. This one they don't. They just kind of thrash the hell out of it and be buggered with the results. Tim Ripper Owens. Now, I'm not going to beat up on Tim Ripper Owens per se, because the guy is a great vocalist. He is superb. Another album that I've received digitally recently for airplay purposes was his latest project, The Three Tremors, where he's working with 2 other metal vocalists doing a kind of 3 tenors style metal kind of album. He is superb on that. I love his work with Iced Earth. I love his stuff that he did with Child Walls of the Damned. Where he's not trying to be Rob Halford and just being a vocalist that's a little bit Rob Halford influenced is great. On here, he tries to be Rob Halford. The result is, it sounds like kind of some thrash metal Judas Priest tribute band. It does not sound like Priest at all. And for someone that, now Priest were the first metal band I ever saw live back in 1979, and I have been a massive Priest fan ever since, you know. But there are a couple of Priest albums that have come out over the last 20 odd years or so that I wince at, and I don't wince any more than this. I even prefer Nostradamus to this album, which is saying something. Not a good record at all. I only keep this in the collection to remind me of that even the best bands in the world can release really, really duff albums. I would try and pick up a High Point, but I'm struggled. There's a few good riffs on Bloodstained. There's some nice guitar work on Cathedral Spire, the 9-minute closing cut, but overall I struggle to get anything from this album whatsoever. Definitely a try before you buy, and if you like it, then more pound to your elbow, because I just try as I might, and I've been trying on and off since this came out in 1987. Like 24 years of trying to get into this album. I can't say anything really good about it at all. Yeah, sorry about that. We went on a down note, but why not? Judas Priest. I thought, starting off with the Mark Storey story about him being tipped to replace Bon Scott and being glad they didn't, because and then Tim Ripper Owens coming from a Priest tribute band to replace the guy in the real thing, rings true. So I thought that'll make a good way to bracket the show. So yeah, Jugulator, Judas Priest, 1997. Avoid like the plague. Don't touch it with anybody's. Okay, so that's it for this week. Comments and are always welcome. Yeah, I like debating with people. People do it on Facebook, and I see a few more people do it on YouTube. If you disagree with me on something, you know, is Jugulator a good album? And tell me, where am I going wrong with it? Was I, you know, did Orleans ever get a little bit more ballsy than that Forever album, which is either one of the softest records I possess? Christy Moore, you know, what's your opinion of him? Marianne Faithful, what's your favourite album of hers? Anything that you want to comment on, comments, Facebook, YouTube, always good to hear from you. While you're here, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. It keeps the you know, the old Facebook algorithm going. And again, apologies that I couldn't do any needle drops or play any samples because Facebook and YouTube algorithms primarily doesn't like that kind of thing. I tried it with a previous episode, got a copyright strike, and had the video pulled for about a 10-second snippet of a quite an obscure track. So therefore, what I try and do is tracks from a lot of these albums will turn up on the radio shows over the next couple of weeks. So down there, over there for details of the radio shows. So until then, people, you look after yourselves, and till next week, peeps. Auf Wiedersehen.